Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of Through the Fire. I am your host, Ryan Wickline, and today we are joined by a very special guest. He is the founder of Kametaphysics and Paradoxical Heka, Mr. Reginald Martin. How you doing today, Reginald?
Ryan, I'm doing absolutely wonderful and really excited to be here. So thank you for having me.
Hey, I'm kind of excited to kind of dive in and let you explain to the audience what you kind of do.
Awesome. Awesome. Let's get going.
Awesome. So the number one question the audience is probably wondering, who is Reginald Martin?
So Reginald Martin is just I'm a regular guy that has been on a mission for a while to help others really overcome a lot of the hardship and difficulties of just dealing with life. So I've always one of the things I made a vow to myself years ago that I would never ever look back on my life and wonder what if, you know, and look back on my life and wish that I had have done this or wish that I had have did that. I was going to take some chances. So through taking chances, it hasn't always been an easy road, but I always figure, when I'm gone and I get to my life review, I'm gonna slide in and go, ooh, what a ride.
Well, that's a perfect way to start living life. I know so many people that are scared to take chances and risks and just want to stay comfortable.
Yeah, yeah. I heard there was a quote that I heard. I think it was by Benjamin Franklin. Is that many people die at 25 and just wait for the grave to catch up. You know?
That's a pretty good quote.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
was
So
that rock bottom moment that you had that made you say, "Hey, I'm not gonna wait for life to happen to me. I'm gonna go live my best life."
Ryan, let me tell you, I've had three rock bottom moments, but I always come back stronger. Okay, the first one was basically I was a school teacher for a number of years, and I really went into school teaching, and man, I had this. I was on fire. I was gonna make a difference in the kids' lives, and so every day go to the classroom and just doing my thing. And then bureaucracy gets in the way. So you got to go through all of the stuff and things that I wanted to impart to the kids. I couldn't do it. I was just a lot of red tape. But at one point, right around the time of COVID, I we were out of school, so we had to shut school down early. And as a teacher, we get paid for 12 months, but we work in the school for 9. So for 2 months you get to feel like a rich man. You get a paycheck and you're not working. That's the summertime. Well, I started to putting together some things that I wanted to do, and then I called in to my principal and said, "Well, I'm not coming back anymore." You know, but through all of that, I ended up putting together some of my foundational stuff that I do now. But you go and you soar to the mountain, and then a lot of times because of the stuff that I teach or have taught, that I couldn't always get coaches because back then some of it could be controversial. So I had to figure stuff out, and I couldn't figure it out fast enough a lot of times. So uh, went up and then came down and just crashed down. But through the crash is really where I started to develop a lot of the things that I do, because you go through, as an entrepreneur, you go through the highs and the lows, you go through depression, you go through all of that stuff, and it's like, how do you get through that? You know, so when I crashed, uh, I had to figure out how to come out of it. So that was the first time that I hit rock bottom. I lost everything I had. And as men, you lose everything you have. Your worth, a lot of times, as men, it's tied to what we have and what we can produce. So you deal with a lot of different things, a lot of different mindsets going through that and coming through rock bottom.
Yeah, I've been there too. So trust me, I know what that feels like, and just to fight way back up, and all the doubt creeps in your mind.
Yep, doubt, self-worth, what good am I if I can't do this or if I can't do that? So all of those things come rushing to you, and so I had to figure out I had been studying a lot of this knowledge, metaphysical knowledge and stuff, or what people might call spiritual knowledge. There's a lot of stuff I had been studying for a number of years. So I looked at life a little bit differently than most people do. And one of those ways that I learned to look at life differently was that basically we are all souls having a human experience, and that is a different way that you access life from, rather than trying to ascend or reach the goal of ascension, or reach the goal of becoming a great soul or whatever. It's the foundation and baseline of what you are. Okay, and that helps you to helps or it helped me to operate from a different perspective, and really help me gain some ideas about coming out of depression and things like that. So that's what kind of helped me start to develop the things that I do now with Kametaphysics and Paradoxical Heka. Was really, how do I navigate this crater that I'm in? What do I do to get out of it? And so the things that I teach is how, as a man and as a human being, how do I maneuver and go through those difficulties.
Yeah. What inspired you to start coaching then?
It just made sense. So for me, it was always I was the guy that friends and family would come to, for advice. I remember being, a teenager and being told, man, you seem like you're older than you are, So I always had this thread of just wisdom and seeing life in a way, and so it was just a natural progression for me, just to start coaching and helping others. So and the way I look at it is as I've gotten older and gone through things, I've gone through things that I can help people that are behind me, in a sense, that might be going through it. I know how to get over it and come through it. So coaches was just a natural progression.
Yeah. What types of services do you provide?
So what I do is I create courses that I help people with. So one of the things that I've helped people with is when they are transitioning from a religious background, and a lot of people are starting to question a lot of that these days. So I built a program that basically helps people to overcome when they're deconstructing, to basically to reconstruct, because a lot of times what ends up happening is that people start to deconstruct, but they stay in that phase for years. And I know for me, I stayed in that phase for probably 10 years because I didn't know anything else. I even went back to my old religion because I wanted a spiritual connection, but I didn't know where to get that from. Okay, so I help people to transition from a non-dogmatic spirituality and develop a new identity, because what happens is people actually lose the identity because you're told what to believe, how to believe, but it is a frame that you operate life within. It can be comforting in a way, but it can also be limiting. So that's what people kind of get away from. But if you don't have that frame anymore, what do you do? How do you navigate life? How do you deal with depression? With you used to have a way that you felt like you could pray to somebody, and things, and maybe things could get okay. But now you don't have that anymore. Okay, so that's one of the things that I do, is help people to do that. And even now I discovered some ancient teachings that are really the underpinnings psychology and therapy today, is what I call paradoxical Heka. And it's really being able, the ability to hold two truths and to create peace within yourself from the ability to do that. So instead of operating trying to reach an exalted state, you start at the baseline of being that exalted state, and that's where you operate from. So helping people just to really navigate life in a way that they can live life through peace and joy and live life on their terms. That's what it's about for me.
Yeah. What's probably, would you say, the biggest challenge your clients face?
There's it's life in general a lot of times, Ryan. I mean, we how do you, because in our society a lot of times we deal with life from a place of you're broken, you know, something is wrong with you and you need to be fixed, you know. But what I found is that it ends up making you adversarial to your own self, because we deal with our shadows, what people will call shadows, and the negative aspects of ourself. And we are taught a lot of times that, I knew growing up religious, we're taught that, that's not supposed to be something that you even look at. You're all good or you're all bad. There's no in between. But we know that life doesn't work that way. There's nuance. So some of the most difficult things that, like, I dealt with depression. I questioned myself. I questioned my self-worth. So how do you navigate that now when you don't even have the old belief system that you used to have? You know. So now with paradoxical Heka, what I can do is help a person to recognize that both aspects, the shadow and the light, are an aspect of them, and they can actually use the shadow as fuel to actually reach the light, to actually use the shadow, the negative stuff, as fuel to help you overcome the difficulties.
Okay. Okay. So what is Kametaphysics and how did you discover it?
So Kametaphysics is basically like, you can think of it, and I just use like an analogy. It is the map of beingness, and I call it on the ontology of being. And what that means is, when I came from a religious background, I was told that I was a sinner. I was, that all human beings are born wicked. And that's what I call the ontology of brokenness. And ontology just simply means the study of being. Who are you? Who am I? And when you're operating from that perspective, it really, when you get down, you start to asking some questions like, man, am I cursed? Am I being punished? You know? So when you start to asking questions like that, it really gets in the way of you really developing, resilience in your life. Because if you feel like you're getting, like you're cursed, and God is working against you, you're not going to defeat God. So what do? You know, and a lot of times people can give up, they can get depressed, and you have to deal with it a different way. So that was, for me, I started to question that. You know, it was just it didn't make sense to me. That just a lot of the stuff from a religious perspective. So I started learning about and studying about where these ideas came from, and I found that what we were taught through religion was actually a distortion, and that really we weren't born sinners. What we were actually taught was we were born divine. Okay, and that's one way to look at it. But in a sense, we're not born broken. We're actually born whole, and we can be out of alignment with that. So that's how I approach that nowadays. So that's one of the things that helped me to come through the difficulties, and that's where I started to discover a lot of these ideas. The more that I studied, the more I saw that it was really these ancient ideas were really teaching us how to remain whole and sane while we're here in this world on this earth plane.
Uh, Like, where were these ancient teachings at?
So from ancient Egypt is where a lot of it started. So ancient Egypt was the source of really a lot of everything that came through my childhood religion of Christianity was actually it actually began in ancient Egypt. So they took the ideas and the spiritual systems that was 10,000 years old and then created a religion from the spiritual system.
Hmm. Can you explain what our inherited operating systems are and how Kametaphysics can break through these patterns?
Yeah, so great question because what it and it was kind of what I was saying is that metaphysics is really our inherited systems. A lot of times, it's like I was saying, we inherit the idea that we're broken. You know, something's wrong with us. So from that perspective, you know, we operate really at a deficit a lot of times. So the bottom line that the ancient systems were actually teaching us is that we are creators of our reality. That I don't know if you're familiar with the secret and the idea that thoughts become things. You know, so our inner world is actually a projection to is our outer world is a projection of our inner world. So what you believe and how you perceive life is really what you'll even draw to you as life. So those are just some of the basic principles that a lot of these teachings were ancient teachings were telling us. But again, they just got distorted. You know, so it's a really deep and beautiful science that was really changed and distorted to make us really end up developing self-loathing, lack of confidence, not allowing us to think for ourselves. A lot of stuff that religion ended up doing that you know is just not healthy for us, and it doesn't produce a healthy society.
Yeah. What are some practical ways to overcome imposter syndrome?
So one of those ways, just practically speaking, is to we I help a person to reorient themselves to the idea that they are creators of their reality. Okay, and one of the ancient sayings that I heard a long time ago is that life is an illusion. Okay, and when they said that, they didn't mean that life was not real. They didn't mean that you don't experience life. The illusion was that you are powerless over really creating your life. So the reality is that we are creators. So from that perspective, that's how you can really deal with and overcome, you know, just a lot of the limitations that you might feel that you have. And it's really about learning the processes and steps to overcome that. One of the biggest things to do is you recognize life as feedback for you. Okay, so and life is in that sense is feedback because it's giving you information and signals about who you are being, and how you're reacting to life is telling you who you're being, and you can decode your uh you can really decode who you're being by what's happening to you in life. If you don't like something that's happening to you in life, then you can change that.
Yeah, so it's kind of like using, was it like visualization and manifest things then too, kind of along
That's
those
part
lines.
of it. Definitely
Yeah.
part of it. And the deal is that you when you're trying to manifest something, what is going to come to you is based on what you believe. So you're going to draw to you what you believe about life. And if you see things in a negative way, in other words, you can't get a positive life from a negative mindset. So if you know dealing with a lot of depression, a lot of negative things are coming at you all the time. You know, and it's hard to navigate life when you're in that. How do you come out of that? You know, so when you can operate from a perspective of being a soul having a human experience, you recognize your energetic that your energy is giving you information about how you can navigate life. As a soul having a human experience, we the soul itself, the our essence self, is actually always in a state of joy. That's just a natural state. So when you're operating using that as a baseline, when you're not in joy, then that means you're misaligned. Well, how do you get back aligned? And that means that you find things that make you feel good. You do things in the moment, in the day. There was a point where when I had lost everything, I was really down, and I was like, this day, what can I do to feel better? And one of the things I love doing, Ryan, is just studying, and I love researching this information and knowledge. So I started researching this knowledge, and and of course, just getting excited about finding stuff, and I look up, and an hour had passed, and then as I'm studying, I'm looking, I'm like, man, a lot of people want to know this, and at the time I was doing YouTube, and I would do videos. So I decided, you know what, people will probably want to know this. I'll probably produce a video. Well, Ryan, I got lost and excited about studying and doing the video. All of a sudden, I wasn't depressed anymore. So in those moments, just being and doing who I am, I got back into alignment and feeling the joy of just being, not trying to, do anything special. Just enjoy life from the perspective of me being me and enjoying something. And that's one of the tools that I teach people is let joy be your guide. Okay. So in that sense, the me feeling joy became my guide out of depression, just doing something that I enjoy doing. So that's one tool or one way that you can use your essence as the calibration for where you want to be mentally and emotionally.
Yeah, I like that. How you said, a lot of people don't understand. Like, if you find something that you like to do, you're gonna end up like finding purpose and get a little bit more clarity and kind of be able to move forward because you're finding like joy in the moment.
Yeah, and that's really the secret, Ryan, is a lot of people say, well, I don't know what my purpose is. And that might be true. Okay. You might not know what your purpose is in the moment. But one key to getting to that is just to follow the things that you enjoy doing. Do those things as much as your ability will allow every single day, and just day by day, moment by moment, day by day, just do what you enjoy, and you will end up at your purpose. You might not know what it is until you get there, you know. But if you just live every day through your joy, man, that right there just makes life worth living, you know.
Yeah.
But it also becomes a prescription for depression, for confusion, for all of that. It ends up solving a lot of the problems that we deal with day to day when we don't have direction.
Yeah. Can metaphysics be used to prevent burnout and stress?
Yeah, and that's exactly and it's not even trying to prevent it. It's just really taking the perspective of how do you want to live your life. And as I was just saying here, the other thing is that when you're enjoying doing something, because what burnout is something that you're trying to force energy into something that you really don't enjoy. That's really what burnout is. And because you're trying to force that energy, you're not really you're not energetically happy about what you're doing, and you're trying to force it, and trying to force it burns you out. But when you're doing what you enjoy, there's no such thing as burnout. When that happens, it's like you can't wake up in the morning and get at what you were doing, because That's how I live my life most days, Ryan, is man, I can't wait to get out of bed and do what I do. I couldn't wait till I could get on here and talk with you. This is just something I just enjoy doing. So it's like I'm living my joy just by being who I am. And I never get tired of doing this. I can't burn out doing this. You know what I'm saying? So from that perspective, from a metaphysics and ontological perspective of being, when you live life through your joy, burnout isn't even like it's not even doesn't even register. But when you're trying to force life or trying to force yourself into doing something that you don't really like, that's when burnout happens.
Yeah. How can metaphysics be used by coaches, therapists, and practitioners to help clients?
That's a great question because what it ends up doing is it ends up when you're talking about developing it from an ontological perspective, you actually can use it alongside of a lot of the therapies or psychological things that you're doing because what happens is a lot of times the see how can I say this, it gets into being like mindset work. Okay, so it gets into being where you focus on the mindset, but you don't deal with what we might call the shadows. Okay, and what ends up happening is instead of what we end up making the shadows our adversary, where either we're trying to overcome them or we're trying to bypass them. Okay, and as therapists, what these things will do, what paradoxical Heka and Kametaphysics will do, will help you actually integrate the shadows. So that's really the key, and what the ancients were teaching was about integration rather than us trying to bypass or ignore and ignore the shadows, because it's ultimately about us becoming more of who we are. And the shadows are a part of us just like the light is. So in that sense, you can use metaphysics and paradoxical Heka with any other modalities that you're doing to kind of give it another foundation and a different ontological perspective, and it can be very powerful when using them together.
Yeah. What is paradoxical Heka?
So that's the idea of actually using a breath, ritual, and timing to actually create what's called a paradox. Because what ends up happening is most people think paradox means like a contradiction. But in reality, paradox is actually how I define that is that it's this and that. Okay. So, and this is what I mean by that. So, and I'll give an example. So, for instance, somebody might be dealing with the idea of on their job, they might be dealing with, they might be stressed out on their job, and they're stressed out because they're fighting. They want to be successful, but they feel like they're failing. Okay. So they have this idea of success. So you have two poles that you're talking about here, success and failure, okay, that you're dealing with. So the paradox is that what we'll do, well, what we'll do most times is we'll try to use affirmations and mindset work to overcome the stress. Okay. But it's focused only on the stress, or you're trying to bypass it or you're trying to ignore it. Okay. But what the paradox says is where you're stressed, but you have to recognize that you are a creator of your reality, that you are a soul having a human experience. So what you would do is you would acknowledge the stress that you're feeling. So I'll make a paradoxical statement. And the Heka part is that you're actually using breath to program your field, your energetic field. So when you're speaking this statement, you're actually setting up a program within your energetic field. So I might say something like, even though right now I'm feeling stressed and I'm feeling like I'm a failure, I understand that to the universe, I am whole and I am loved and I love myself unconditionally. Okay. So right then I wasn't fighting the stress. Okay. I acknowledged it and I honored it. but I also honored the other truth of who I am, that I am a soul having a human experience, and the universe has me. The universe is going to take care of me because I see the universe as a friendly place when it comes to me. Okay. I can get out of alignment. But at that point, when I make those two truths of a statement, it creates a third spot. It ends up reconciling those two to where it ends up creating inner peace within me. Okay. So the using the breath, you're programming your field, and then the paradoxical Heka statement. Instead of trying to fight or overcome the stress, you reconcile with
Yeah. So,
it.
yeah, I get it. So it's pretty much just like affirmations and everything, but you're just kind of reprogramming your mind to deal with the stress and say it's here, kind of like with meditation too, because you're deep breathing and you're just kind
Hmm.
of, them thoughts are there and just kind of letting it be. You're kind of letting that, your thoughts be, the stress
Yeah,
be, and you're just
yeah,
going moving forward with it. So it's
yeah.
kind of a
And
mix.
I like to
It's
say
kind of a mix.
is yeah. So it's not affirmations in the sense, because what affirmations do is they stay from a mental perspective. Okay, and you're dealing with that in the mind, where you're either trying to ignore it or bypass it. So affirmations won't stick, and they usually don't. Or we have a difficult time trying to believe the affirmation. You know, but the reason why paradoxical Heka is different is that you're not affirming, you're saying the truth of what you're feeling. So you're not trying to bypass what you're feeling. Okay. So you're honoring the I'm feeling stressed because I feel like I'm failing on my job. Okay. I honor that fail, I honor that fear, I honor that stress. So that's one way that you're doing it. So you're acknowledging it, but then you're acknowledging the other half of you, the indestructible part of you that knows that the universe is okay and that you're going to be okay. Okay. So in that sense, it's different from an affirmation, because now you're anchoring it into your essence of your being. And once you do those two things, you're programming it with your breath when you're speaking it, and then you actually create that actually ends up creating the peace within you. One of the ways that you know that this is working is that you'll actually feel chills come over you. Okay. When you feel those chills come over you when you do that, then you actually know that it's actually recalibrating your energetic field. So you feel it somatically, you feel it in your body. Okay. So it's different. So with an affirmation, that won't happen. Well, I say probably 95% of the time that won't happen, because it's not something that you really believe. But you know that you've spoken two truths when you do the paradox.
Okay. How did you just kind of discover this?
Oh man, I wish I could remember. I know that I study, so when I'm studying a lot of things, and sometimes what I do is I tap into my intuition a lot of times, and things just come to me. And I was studying something about the ancient principle of Ma'at. This is an ancient Egyptian principle, and Ma'at is about balance, truth, and reciprocity. Well, to make a long story short, I recognized that Ma'at and balance it wasn't about balance, it was actually about paradox. Okay. And when I started studying and started looking deeper into stuff, I noticed that many spiritual systems talk about the same thing. They just say it in different ways. Okay. Have you ever seen the medical symbol of the caduceus, where they have the two serpents going
Yeah.
up the okay? So that's actually symbolic of the process that I'm just talking about. Okay. Now I want you to think about this. So you got the central pole, and what's happening is that those two serpents are intertwining. They're not fighting. Okay. So they're actually intertwining going up this pole. And the intertwining is on one level, that is our nervous system, our sympathetic nervous system and our parasympathetic nervous system that are intertwining with each other to produce that peace.
Huh.
Okay. So that's actually symbolic of the process that I was just talking about. And then I started noticing that it was talked about in Buddhism, it was talked about in Hinduism. There's many different systems that they don't say paradox, they say something else. But when you start looking at the concept, it's actually a paradox. And then I started connecting it to really some modern psychological systems that are using paradox. But the only thing is they keep it on the mental side, and they never ever go to really what's the metaphysical side and the energetic side of it.
Oh, so what you're saying is they just kind of like the therapy side kind of just focus on the mind and not the body and the mind together.
They don't they focus on the body and the mind, but they don't get into the essence of us. That we are souls having a human experience. And I know a lot of that has to do with just belief systems, you know.
Yeah.
And but that's one of the separating parts of what are the of what Kametaphysics and Paradoxical Heka does, is that it does bring in that non-dogmatic spirituality and metaphysical knowledge. Okay, so
Yeah.
so that's a big part of it, is recognizing that the ancients always put it in the terms of there's a spirit and matter, you know, and that's how I look at this. So the soul is dealing with it in the spiritual world, and then our bodies and minds are in the metaphysical, are I'm sorry, are in the world of matter. And those are the two poles that you're operating between. And usually modern science and psychology only operates within the mental and the physical aspect, and they end up bypassing not having the ability to really reconcile that paradox.
Okay. You've authored numerous books. What inspired you to start writing all of them?
Oh man, it's like, Ryan, you just get inspired. And this is again is when I'm talking about living through your joy. Like I'm actually putting together a book now on Paradoxical Heka. But it's like there's something in you and you just got to get it out. But it's a joy to actually end up start putting it together, because as a teacher I love teaching, okay, and I love talking about this stuff and putting it in ways to make it understandable for people, because sometimes the metaphysical and spiritual stuff, they can be so abstract that it makes no sense, and it doesn't even make practical sense, you know. For example, the idea of surrender, you know, a lot of people, a lot of spiritual systems say, oh yeah, you just need to surrender, you know. And I heard that, you know, just over so many years, but it's like, how do you do that, you know? So I started to research what this stuff meant, and then I recognized that surrender is really about, it's an active process of Paradoxical Heka. But writing the books and stuff like that, man, it's just it's coming from a place of inspiration and joy of just putting that information out, and so people can understand it and use it.
Yeah. What was the most challenging part while you were writing any of your numerous books?
Uh, Trying to put it in a way that it could be understandable. So that's really the challenge. But that's the fun part for me as a teacher, is how do you make this stuff accessible to where it's just not confusing. One of the things I don't like is woo-woo spirituality. And what I call woo-woo is that somebody will tell you something, but it's like, how do you use it? How do I apply it to my life? You know, like in a lot of circles that I'm in, people will say something like vibrate higher. Like, well, what does that mean? Vibrate higher. And I know what they're trying to say, but it's like, well, how do you do that? You know, so for me, I want to go back, instead of saying just using this you know, just that flippant term of vibrate higher. How does a person do that? So I back up and then I'm going to teach you how to vibrate higher. So I'm going to give you processes of how to make that happen. So it's no longer woo-woo. It's actually something that you can actually apply to your life every day.
What's been the most rewarding part of writing books?
For me, just writing the books and doing what I do, Ryan, I get people that'll come to comments and stuff that, articles that I write, and they'll leave a comment about how something that I said or taught them changed their life. And I remember there was one of my YouTube videos, somebody came and said that how they came to my channel because of something that one of their friends had learned through me. And they said that this friend was really struggling with life, struggling with their family, and just struggling with a lot of things that they were dealing with. And they came to my channel and they said that this friend like flipped a switch and they started living their best life just by watching some of the stuff that I do on YouTube. They said they couldn't believe the change in this person. And they said they basically told me, I'm here now because of what I saw happen with my friend. That something made a difference with them, and they are now living their best life. Ryan, that is one of the biggest rewards I get, is to hear something like that, man. It's just like it's amazing.
That's awesome. What are your short-term and long-term goals?
Man, to help people, to help the world, to help humanity, to really understand that they have the ability to be creators, that living life on your terms, without guilt and shame, is one of the best places that you can be. So if you just hold that place, if you do what you do, you can hold that space for others to do that same thing. And I think that that's going to make a better world for all of us.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. How can people get a hold of you?
So they can reach me at my Substack at reginaldmartin.substack.com. And there I'm always doing writing, I'm doing videos. So a lot of things, I made that my platform instead of YouTube now. But that's where they can reach me at reginaldmartin.substack.com.
Awesome. I'll post that in the show notes too for everybody to get a hold of you too. Is there
Awesome.
anything we haven't covered that you want to talk about?
I think we've covered it all, man. You asked some great questions, so thank you for that. That really brings joy to me when you ask questions, because it helps me to flow and to teach. So
Yeah.
thank you for that, man. I really
Hey,
appreciate
not
it.
a problem. Okay, final question. What is one piece of advice you'd like to leave our listeners with about overcoming adversity?
Man, find the things that bring you joy, and that you have the ability to create your life when you do that. Live life through your joy, and you'll be able to overcome anything. So when you're down in the dumps, find one thing for 1 minute that'll make you feel better, and then just do it again the next minute and the next minute. And soon you'll string together an hour, you'll string together a day, and you'll string together a week, and just keep it moving. So find your joy and live life on your terms.
Great advice. I love it. Reginald, thank you so much for coming on here and sharing your insight with all of us.
Hey, I appreciate being here, man. Thank you for having me.
Hey, not a problem. Well, guys, that's going to be all the time we have here today. Remember, the only way to get what you want is go through the fire.